Recording in progress.
Welcome, everybody. The time is now 3:30, and I hereby call the July 16th, 2024 meeting of the St. Joseph County Area Plan Commission to order. This meeting is being held in person and virtually on the fourth floor council chambers of the County City Building. We will first ask for any public comment in those in the chambers, and then from members of the public attending remotely. For public comment, for those attending remotely, please use the raise hand function and message the host and/or message the host in the chat. Please clearly state your name and address for the record. We ask that board members state their name when making a motion and a second. At this time, please silence your cell phones so they do not disturb the meeting. I'd also like to welcome our newest member of the commission, Ms. Julie Lauk.
Yes.
Welcome aboard. Thank you. Can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Devon,
Here?
Dr. Lauk,
Here.
Mr. Krasinski,
Present.
Ms. Hannon, Mr. England, Mr. Roush, Mr. Matzett,
Here.
Dr. Thacker.
Here.
We have 5 members present.
Thank you.
Oh, and Mr. Tavernier.
Thank you, Shelley. We are a 9-member commission. We currently have 5 members present in person today. If there is a petitioner that would prefer to have their petition heard with more members present, they may ask staff to have their item tabled to a future meeting when more members might be present. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started with rezoning for item number 1, please.
A proposed ordinance of Veldkoff Enterprises LLC to amend the zoning commitments required by ordinance number 1212 as approved by the New Carlisle Town Council on August 17, 2009, for the property located at unaddressed 9.47 plus or minus acre parcel immediately northeast of the intersection of Timothy and Marvel Lane, Town of New Carlisle, APC application number 304524.
Okay, good afternoon. This is Carl Brown Grimm, Area Plan Commission staff. So the subject of the rezonings today are 2 related lots located east of Timothy Road, directly north of the town of New Carlisle. This first petition falls within the town limits, so you will be making a recommendation to the town council on this one. Some history is required here, so I'll do my best to summarize that for you now. In 2009, this property was rezoned successfully to CB, Community Business District, which is analogous to the county's C Commercial District. At the time, there were concerns that the intensity of many of the allowed uses in that district were inappropriate for the area due to drainage and other concerns, and this is evidenced by an unfavorable APC recommendation at that time. When the rezoning was ultimately approved by the town council, it was made subject to written commitments shown here. Notably, Commitment A required the site to be developed in accordance with the adopted site plan. The petitioner today is asking to modify these commitments just to remove Commitment A. This site plan that was approved in 2009 is shown here. It shows the layout for a proposed self-storage facility with available retail space in the front of those buildings. Just last year in early 2023, the petitioner sought to similarly remove this written commitment to allow them to develop the property as storage units without that retail space in the front. However, after further discussion with the town of New Carlisle, the petitioner withdrew that original proposal and has brought 2 rezonings before you today, seen here with this updated project. Essentially, the previously proposed self-storage project has been moved to the property owned by the petitioner to the north, tucked behind the existing Wayne Scott Event Center, with an easement allowing access to the project from Marvel Lane. This easement also shows 1, I believe, self-storage unit. The petitioner and the town have indicated that this layout represents a compromise in that the self-storage use is situated in a location that's more favorable for the town, and the subject property can be developed more in line with the long-term vision of this area as a gateway to the town. To this end, the petitioners are requesting, again, a modification from that written commitment A to not require strict adherence to the 2009 site plan. Staff is recommending favorably, although it is our understanding that the town would like to supplement this request with an additional written commitment, providing assurance that the extent of the self-storage use will be contained to the new property as shown on this site plan. And I believe the petitioner has indicated that they're willing to work with the town on that one. So here is the site as viewed from Marvel Lane. This is looking east toward the event center. Again, the easement should be right around there. That's looking north. These are single-family homes directly across Marvel Lane, and then looking east to kind of get the character of the area. So turning to our criteria to consider for rezoning, staff finds the proposal meets all of them, largely predicated on the base zoning of the property as CB, commercial, community business, excuse me, and the recently adopted 2040 Town of New Carlisle Comprehensive Plan, future land use map that highlights this property for an integrated mixed-use character area. According to the plan, this character area is intended to be like a gateway into the town, and you will notice it on both the east and west ends of the town of New Carlisle. The comprehensive plan specifically calls out this area as allowing for uses such as diverse housing, retail, hospitality, and offices. Allowing for the site to develop in the town's current community business district without being restricted to that 2009 site plan most closely resembles this character area as directed by the comprehensive plan. Further, the comprehensive plan that was recently adopted directs the town to, quote, establish vibrant commercial areas that showcase New Carlisle as a boutique shopping, dining, and entertainment destination while providing a well-balanced and diverse range of goods and services to meet the daily needs of local residents. Given the information available to staff, we do recommend a favorable recommendation to the town of New Carlisle regarding the removal of the 2009 site plan restriction. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Carl. Any questions by the commission this time? No? Otherwise, let's have the presentation by the petitioner, please.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is George Lepiniotis, attorney with Krieg DeVault, offices at 4101 Edison Lakes Parkway, Suite 100 in Mishawaka, Indiana. I'm here on behalf of both Veldkoff Enterprises LLC as well as Wyckoff Farms. As you can tell by the name, Veldkoff is a combination of the Veldmans and the Wyckoffs, both of whom are longtime residents of New Carlisle and St. Joseph County. Representatives of both families are with me today. I have Todd Veldman and Jason Wyckoff here, as well as their contractor. And as staff said, this site has a long history on its development path. It sits on a unique corner in New Carlisle at Marvel Lane and Timothy Road, an area that the comprehensive plan has identified as a future growth area for integrated mixed use. The corner of Marvel Lane and Timothy, which is the site that was subject to the 2009 restrictive site plan, was to include self-storage on it. And that was a major concern at the time, and hence the reason for the site plan. The new plan allows the self-storage project to be built in a more inconspicuous place behind the event center, for those of you familiar with the facility, which also has some similar concerns. It had similar concerns when it was developed as far as drainage and lighting and noise pollution and such. So putting the self-storage there actually creates even maybe a buffer between the event center and potential integrated mixed use to the north. So that is important. And so as part of the negotiation process, both of my clients agreed that removing the self-storage from the corner lot completely by written commitment, so it wouldn't be something that they could try to do in the future, and allowing the self-storage portion to go into the northern site would be better both for the corner lot and largely for the character of the neighborhood. So, you know, I didn't want this to necessarily look like a bait and switch on my client's part. It has been something that there's been a significant amount of conversation with the town. I will also mention that the 5-acre parcel, which currently sits in the county, will be extended municipal utilities from the town of New Carlisle. So as you're considering these, I know I'm blurring lines between both petitions, but it's hard to do in this case because they really are related. would end up being annexed into the town. We're pretty sure that that would be the development plan. So it currently sits in unincorporated county, but it will end up being part of New Carlisle on a voluntary annexation. As far as that corner lot is concerned, the written commitments as drafted are fine, although I think they might hinder the CB lot, so we will talk to the town further about what those commitments look like. But note that one of the commitments that I think is important when you're considering both petitions is that the self-storage units are built at a higher architectural standard than some. Especially the front-facing buildings that face Marvel will have some higher-end materials, brick, some wrought iron fencing, and some other types of decorative measures to ensure they fit the character of that higher-end northern New Carlisle neighborhood where they sit. I'm open to questions. I think the concept on the corner is that the CB hasn't really fully taken off, so it will continue to be farmed until such time as it does, or that there is development opportunity. That could be sooner or later. But right now, the imminent change there, as residents see it, would be to build the self-storage units behind the event center, which my client feels is the right place for those. And the town of New Carlisle also does at this point.
Okay. Any questions?
I have one.
But, yep.
And George, I think you mentioned that there'll be an easement that comes out to Marvel Lane for access back to the storage units, correct?
That's correct, yeah. You can see on this parcel, there's that triangular sliver. That would incorporate a detention area for site water. There is a high water table there. There have been a number of soil borings done, and we actually have Tim McCullough from the contractor with us in case you had questions on the water table. But there's been a significant amount of investigation on that water table. So that easement off of the current corner lot will include access, security, fencing, and the water detention area.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gene,
Is there going, George, is there going to be any type of site barrier or landscaping in between the storage unit and the unit south?
Yes, there will, yeah, to protect both the self-storage as well as the surrounding, the event center, and then ultimately the residential neighborhood further south. There will be a buffer there on the south side of the parcel, the self-storage parcel.
Okay.
Dr. Laut, can I be your first question? All right.
As long as you've done your homework. And
All right, very
worked-
good.
Worked with the town of New Carlisle, because I know they've worked very hard on their plans.
They have, yes, very much so.
Great.
Okay. We'll go ahead and open to the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, is there anybody present wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Please come forward, state your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Dan Caruso, 305 Compton Street, New Carlisle. I want to say, Mr. Lepiniadis, nice presentation. I've been reading about this for some time. I actually went out to the property on University Drive and looked at compared what this property will be. They're making favorable comparisons. And the commitment you're removing is, say, similar in design, color, scheme, construction material as the storage project on University Drive. I don't know why that needs to be removed, because I went by there, I was really impressed with the way that is set up. I mean, the screening, the trees. I tried to look into the place, and I could just look down the first 2 aisles because everything else was like 20-foot firs all around the place. And to me, it's a perfect setup. But if you're going to do the construction the way you say, it sounds like you have it in good hands here. But I talked to Abby about it, I've talked to several people about it. I've noticed a lot of these storage areas, they allow people to bring in their motorhomes, their campers, their trailers that they pull behind with their construction equipment on it, and leave it sit out there in the middle. And one in particular off of the bypass between 31 and 23 as you go towards Niles looks like a junkyard. And you can see there's storage units in there, but it looks like a junkyard. I don't know if there is, or if we can get a commitment to say everything has to go inside the units. Can't be anything laying out. I know the one up there on University, they've got, of course, a general trash receptacle for everybody inside, in the unit. But that's all I could see down that first aisle was the trash receptacle. And I mean, for all I know, there were bodies laying in there, but they were well screened. You couldn't see them. But if you could, the chance that we could turn into something like that where there are just vehicles that people leave there until they decide to use them, or maybe even in disrepair and not being just somewhere to put them rather than scrap them. I'd like to see some sort of a commitment to everything inside the fence line of the storage area goes inside of a building, not out in the parking area. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Anybody else present wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Seeing none. Anybody on Zoom wishing to speak in favor of this petition, please use the raise hand function. Seeing none. Anybody present wishing to speak against this petition, please come forward. Seeing none. Anybody online wishing to speak against this petition, please use the raise hand feature.
I would like to speak, but I don't see where the raise hand feature is. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Charlotte, 21439 Osborne Road, Lakeville. And I just wanted to mention that I continue to be concerned about building in a high water table area. I think that it's not very wise, and it's going to cost a lot of money to replace the functions of the wetlands that used to be there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Charlotte. Anybody else wishing to speak against this petition, please use the raise hand feature. Mary? Mary, go ahead.
Mary Countryman, 52959 Timothy Road, New Carlisle.
Go ahead, Mary.
Hi, I have a few concerns too, as far as where it's a storage unit, we don't know what's going in those storage units. And as Charlotte expressed, the high water table has always been an issue in that whole area. And who knows what's going to be in those storage units, and if something's in there that could leak out or contaminate the area and our water. That is a concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak against this petition, please use the raise hand feature.
There's some chat, there's a little notification down there. I don't know if it was somebody saying they wanted to speak or not, but there's a little flag on the chat.
Yes, Heather McGinnis, 314 Marvel Lane. We are also concerned about the high water table and how that would affect items that people would have in the storage units. And you also, I don't recall the gentleman's name, but the light pollution was also mentioned. One of the reasons that I like living on this street is the lack of light pollution. You can actually see the sky. I don't wish to see us become another South Bend where you can't really look up at the stars. And Mary also had another excellent point on what people store in the units, you know, the potential for those leaking out. Is there going to be some sort of guidelines that people have to follow on what they can store in there? Not to mention pest control. I have heard stories of storage units having problems with roaches and mice. with big open fields across the street. I can imagine you guys understand that we see a lot of mice on this side of the street, the south side of Marvel Lane. That could be an issue for the storage unit as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's a Vince that put
Go
a note
ahead,
there.
Mr. Vince.
Hello, and thank you. Vince Voico, 238 Ziegler Street in Carlisle. I have some concerns in regards to the rezoning of the property. As mentioned, the water table, I did pull up some prior images of, I believe it was 2013 and 2016, where there was a considerable amount of standing water in the event center and the field associated. And with the revision and the updates of Ziegler Street and the water flow in the area, a lot of that water now flows into the ditch to the west of that property. I am very concerned that this is going to be a situation where the retention pond is probably going to be undersized, or it's going to always overflow, and there's going to be a requirement for a lift station. And when that lift station comes in, it's going to be, who's going to pay for that lift station? There's no good water removal. It's kind of a bowl in that area. I was also interested in the height. It appears that the height requirement for this rezoning is now 60 foot versus the previous, which I believe was 20 foot. So I'm a little interested in what drives that height increasement. And I could share those images if anybody would like to see them. I could post them somehow. A little difficult with Zoom, I apologize, but more than willing to share and inquire and engage in a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Anybody else online wishing to speak against this petition? Seeing none, one now closes to the public. And George, if you want to, 10 minutes to rebut.
Thank you. I want to start with a basic here, and that is that the corner Marvel Lane lot is already approved for self-storage. That happened in 2009. So we are not talking about adding a new use there. That was already approved and discussed in 2009. So self-storage is allowed on that corner. With that said, my clients understand the concerns of the neighborhood. They are residents, they are landowners, they have a vested interest in the town of New Carlisle and our county. So I want to give you some more insight. Pest control is a part of every one of my clients' self-storage facilities. Pest control is an extremely important part of self-storage. You really don't get people to the higher end facilities like the Veldhof facilities without taking care of the facilities yourself as a landowner. Secondly, as to light pollution, while we understand that there's a residential character to that neighborhood to the south, the lights will be designed to only cast light down. They are facility-mounted lights as opposed to pole lights. They have, there will go through the building inspection and the building design process, but light control will be a major part of that process. Third, as to the high water table, and I just can't state this enough, everybody knows that it's an issue. And so undersized storage, on-site water storage just cannot happen out there. It would be detrimental to the facility. This will go through the county engineering's technical review. I'm actually joined today by the engineer that my clients have hired from SAM, Deborah Hughes. Deborah is very experienced as a civil engineer in designing water retention and detention solutions, and it will be a big part of it. We've already spoken with county officials on what type of storage is necessary and what type of overflow or not overflow into the western Timothy Road ditch may or may not happen. But the idea is not to go in there and neglect the high water table and put this in a manner that you would put it in a dry site. So want to be clear on that, and also wanted to follow up with, of course, people are people. We can't account for every person that rents a unit there. But this will be designed to be largely residential storage. This is not going to be high-end, heavy industrial storage. That just isn't the type of facility this is. You heard the gentleman say he drove by on University Drive. That will be the model for this facility. It really isn't designed for containers of toxic chemicals. Besides, my client's leasing agreement excludes those types of materials in your unit. Does that mean people don't do silly things? People do silly things, but there are cameras, there are other monitoring solutions. There also will be catch basins and other types of protections built into it, vapor barriers, et cetera, as during the construction process. So there will be precautions taken. Finally, as a response to the outdoor storage, the University Drive is the model. There will be no outdoor storage at this site either. So there's no intent to have that pile of RVs, trailers, other type of paraphernalia that you see sometimes at storage units. So,
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Any questions by the commission at this time? This is a Town Council of New Carlisle property. So if there's any other comments, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that APC number 3045-24 be sent to the town council with favorable recommendations, subject to additional written commitments as requested by the town of New Carlisle.
Robert Krasinski, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to send APC 3045-24 to the Town Council of New Carlisle with a favorable recommendation. Roll call, please.
Dr. Lauk,
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
Dr. Thacker,
Yes.
Mr. Devon.
Yes. Vote is 5-0, motion carries. Thank you, and can we have a reading for petition number 2, please? Which I think is related.
A proposed ordinance of Wykoff Family Farm LLC to rezone from A Agricultural District to A Agricultural District and C Commercial District. Property located at 53522 Timothy Road, St. Joseph County, APC application number 3046-24.
Good afternoon. This is Carl Brown Grimm, Area Plan Commission staff once again. George kind of mentioned it. These are separate petitions, but they're really related together. This is part 2 of that previous petition, so we're going to go over a lot of the same stuff. In order to accommodate the new proposed location for the self-storage use that we were just talking about, the petitioners are seeking to rezone a portion of the property abutting directly to the north from A Agricultural District to C Commercial District. As you may know, this property is located within unincorporated St. Joseph County's jurisdiction, so this vote will go as a recommendation to the county council. The property is currently being used as a tilled field. The whole property is not proposed to be rezoned at this time, only the portion behind the event center, approximately 8 of that total 72-acre field. This is looking from the closest right-of-way, Timothy. It's hard to tell here, but the planned self-storage facility will be located behind the trees in the event center, located quite a few hundred feet away from this right-of-way. This is looking north in this same portion of that field, looking north along Timothy, and that's directly west across Timothy, and then south looking back kind of toward town. Here's the facility one more time. George had mentioned it, but the petitioners will need to demonstrate that they can meet county drainage requirements along with other zoning ordinance requirements such as lighting, screening, setbacks, all of that at the plan review stage process. Looking at our criteria to consider with rezoning, staff again finds this rezoning is supported by the county's comprehensive plan, specifically Goal 2, Objective C, directs the county to develop quality business areas to meet the retail and service needs of the planning area. Also, while you are not compelled to consider this because it isn't in their jurisdiction currently, the Town of New Carlisle's comprehensive plan again shows this property as well as part of that integrated mixed-use future character area that I spoke about in the last petition. Again, this property is within the county's jurisdiction, so this is more of a suggestion from the town's point of view, expressing their vision for the area rather than a policy statement. Staff finds the proposed use to be appropriate, given the current conditions and character due to the existing Wayne Scott Auction Center located immediately to the south of the proposed project. This existing use will serve to buffer the adjacent residential properties found across Marvel Lane from the proposed self-storage use and further help to conserve existing property values. Situating this use adjacent to existing commercial uses in town serves to provide a natural extension to that commercial center. And while not requested for the project, the nearby available town utilities are there, making extending the commercial area in this manner more responsible. Based on the information available today, we do recommend a favorable recommendation on this petition as well. Again, this time to the St. Joseph County Council, and I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you, Carl. Any questions? Gene?
I guess I've got one basic question. Why do we have to rezone from ag to ag and commercial? Why can't we just rezone the commercial?
Well, right now they're keeping it as one single lot, so it has to be split zone now. So the part around the commercial will remain ag, and
Okay.
the commercial part is
So it's
commercial.
keeping a parcel for tax purposes.
Right. If it was to be split into two, then we would just have that smaller piece as commercial, but that's
Okay.
how it is.
Thanks.
Anybody else? No? Can we have the presentation again, George?
I will spare you the whole presentation. I will address your question on why the split. We didn't want to come up here without a full site plan for the entire 9 acres. And at this point, there isn't a commercial use proposed or on the foreseeable horizon for the remaining 5 or 10 acres that would remain agricultural. So left it as one parcel until further uses are developed. With the new comprehensive plan, the town of New Carlisle has prioritized this integrated mixed-use character of that northern part. So we anticipate there'll be more activity around that northern site, but at the moment, the only proposed use is the self-storage use. So I'm going to continue farming the remainder, which is the reason for the split in nature.
Okay,
Also didn't want to process a split just to come back 6 months later when a new use may be developed to ask for another split or a different plat or potentially a PUD or something else. So just trying to keep it as simple as possible at this point, given the limited information you have on the full site. With that, again, they're very related. These two go hand in hand. This really is a simple petition of moving self-storage from the corner to behind the event center. It is currently approved on the corner. We'd like to move it to the event center. That is what all of this is about. It makes more room for commercial business on the corner, which makes sense for that corner, and it further buffers the self-storage from the residents to the south.
Okay, thank you. And you said the goal is to most likely annex this property then into?
That is our understanding, yeah, and my client's comfortable with that it would be voluntarily annexed into the town of New Carlisle, given the new comprehensive plan and the goals for the area. Not sure how that's going to stage out, but the total plan would be to do that over time.
Anybody else? Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and open this to public. Is there anybody present wishing to speak in favor? Please come forward.
Dan Caruso, 305 Compton Street. I'm leaving real quick to go pick up a grandkid, but before I leave, as a member of the steering committee that put the comp plan together, I agree with this. I think this is perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Anybody else present wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none. Anybody online wishing to speak in favor of this petition, please use the raise hand feature. Seeing none. Anybody present wishing to speak against this petition? Seeing none. Anybody online wishing to speak against this petition, please use the raise hand feature. Go ahead, Charlotte.
Charlotte Wolf, 21439 Osborne Road, Lakeville. So not necessarily specific to this project, but I just want to remind council of the cumulative effects of additional pavement on runoff. That runoff into drainage, especially in a high water table area, will continue having downstream effects. The wetlands that were there originally and the farmland to a certain degree would serve to soak up the water, but in the absence of these features that allow water to drain in slowly, we will have increased runoff to downstream areas. And then just the overall concern that additional farmland is being eaten up and the sprawl is going to continue out into the county, not just limiting to the town, but going out into the county. And that is a countywide and statewide and nationwide concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Anybody else wishing to speak against this petition, please use the raise hand feature. Seeing none, I will now close this public. George, anything you want to add? Rebut? Okay, good. Okay. Do we have any comments, questions, or do we have a motion?
Make a motion. Make a motion that APC number 3046-24 be forwarded to the county council with favorable recommendation.
Julie Lauk, second.
We have a motion and a second to send APC 3046-24 to the St. Joseph County Council with a favorable recommendation. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Dr. Lauk?
Yes.
Dr. Thacker?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes. Vote is 5-0, motion carries. We have a couple items not requiring a public hearing at this time. We have some miscellaneous bylaw proceedings.
All right. Adam, would you like to cover this, or would you like me to?
I think the basis of it was, we had talked with the different department heads trying to keep a uniform timeframe. I think there's a couple little things, but the big reason is we allow 5 minutes for the general public to talk. The county council has always been 3 minutes. Area plan, or ABZA had just voted to go to 3 minutes as well too, or did they have 3 minutes?
They haven't yet.
Okay,
It's
they've been
going to
talking
be
about going
introduced
3.
at the next
So
meeting.
the thought
for
was to have
amendment.
all different levels have the same amount of time for the general public for these meetings. So that was the main portion of it, to have general public have 3 minutes, and then I think, were we going down to 5-minute rebuttal, or were we not changing the rebuttal?
I don't believe we were talking
We're
about
just
changing the
mainly
rebuttal.
just referring to the,
Yeah.
so
just
just
the
keeping that
public speaking
consistent
part.
across the different levels of each board, I think
'Cause
was
we
the
were
main
running
reason.
into some rambling comments
Right.
in the past
As you
few
know from the last
meetings.
meeting, I had to stop a few people just trying to speak just to speak and have their voice heard that didn't have any relevance to what we were actually voting on. So I think that'll cut that down and make people talk more directly to the point of what the matter is. So that was the reasoning. We talked about bringing this up to be voted on for the next meeting then, is that correct?
We would be able to vote at the next meeting
Yep.
on it.
And I think there's some minor grammatical errors that we were gonna probably fix in the
Yes, Mr.
introduction.
Mattson caught some formatting and grammar things in the bylaws.
Yes, Shelley had given me the bylaws to read about 3 or 4 meetings ago. And since this
It
was
took
on
you
the.
that long to read it?
Well, I'm a slow reader.
Well, it
Since-
seems he was reading them very carefully.
Yeah, since this was on the agenda today, I thought, well, I better give it
Yeah.
a read through. And starting with the table of contents, because there was an addition made to a new Article 6 electronic meeting participation. That shifted all the page numbers as well as the articles on this cover sheet to some differences. And then under Article 10, Section 3, I believe the formatting starting at Section 3 needs to be changed so that after 3, numbers 4 through 9 inclusive would be A, B, C, D, E, F. And then number 10 would change to number 4, 11, 5, 12, 6, and so on down the line. So that's just a matter of numbering and formatting. And then Article 11 has a reference back to the new Article 10. It still has Article 9, Section 3, and subsection 9. So that just needs to be updated. And then on page 16 of the copy that I have, under Article 15, withdrawal of tabled and resubmitted of denied petitions, section number 4, under the letter A, the commission reserves the right to either accept the petitioner's request or proceed with a recommendation. And the accept there is EXCEPT, and it should be ACCEPT. And then Article 17 has, again, a reference to Article 7, which should be referenced to Article 8 under the new numbering. That's all.
And I'm going to bring up, since we're talking about doing amendments of the bylaws, in Article, that's 17, the last sentence is frequently a problem when we're talking about changing the bylaws. It requires that you introduce a written version of the proposed change at one meeting and then vote on it at the next meeting. We've repeatedly amended the bylaws by having you all unanimously vote to suspend that rule and then make the amendment. It seems a little silly to keep having to do that when you guys have persistently been fine with having immediate amendments after you talk about them and discuss them. We haven't had a problem with people sort of springing amendments on you, which is the purpose of that kind of a rule. And the BZA doesn't have this rule. They just have the ability to amend their bylaws. So I would suggest that since we're gonna do it, we include that, because we're gonna have you suspend that rule at the next meeting anyway in order to vote on the ones we just talked about. It would just make sense to get rid of it then too.
Okay. Any questions by anybody on what we talked about?
Shelley, did you write down all those changes, or you have them recorded?
Mr. Matzett gave us his technical corrections, and Abby and I have a pretty good idea of the others.
And that's why I have you talk clearly into the microphone for me.
Okay, so that's coming next month then, correct?
Yes. So next month, the 5-minute comment period will still be in effect for purposes of that meeting, but hopefully we'll be able to get
What if
that
we
done
vote
for
on the
after.
bylaws first?
Well, if you vote on the bylaws first, you could make it happen. I think that it could be a little, the public might feel a little bit like they were being sprung upon in that case, but. Right, I mean, you can do that. You can vote to override the order of the agenda, but
Just making jokes out of it.
I wouldn't recommend doing that personally at this next meeting.
Okay, very good. And then we have findings of the facts to vote on or approve. Do we have any comments, or do we have a motion on the findings of the facts?
This is Gene Matzat. I would move that we approve The finding is of facts, APC number 304324-24. Is that right?
Jerry Thacker, second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the findings of the facts from June 18th, 2024. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Dr. Thacker?
Yes.
Dr. Lauk?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes.
Motion
And we have
passes
minutes.
5-0.
Thank you. We have minutes of March 19th to approve.
Jerry Thacker, I'll make the motion for minutes be approved.
Julie Lauk, second.
We have a motion, we have a first and a second. Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Dr. Thacker?
Yes.
Dr. Lauk?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Minutes approved.
And we have a couple board appointments that we have to adjust or appoint. who's-
All right.
Go ahead.
Just as a matter of clarification, the agenda says appointment of plat, oh, yes, it is plat committee alternate, sorry. The current alternate to the plat committee for the health department has moved to a different role within the health department and no longer one is able to serve as the alternate. We are asking for the appointment of David Ekins, E-K-K-E-N-S? INS, who has now assumed the role of reviewing subdivision plats
Instead of Brett?
instead of Brett, correct. Brett, I don't know his exact title, vector control manager or coordinator.
And David's been in the meetings in the past. Quite a few
Correct.
meetings, yeah.
We were waiting on the confirmation from Mark Espich that David was going to move into the role of being his alternate, and they've asked us to put that forward. So asking for your appointment of David Ekins to the Plat Committee as the Health Department alternate.
Okay, we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint David Atkins, the plat committee alternate, as plat committee alternate.
Jerry Thacker, I'll second the motion.
A motion is second to appoint David Ekins to the plat committee alternate.
Dr. Lauk?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Dr. Thacker?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes. You want to?
Sure. Although we've thoroughly enjoyed having Adam Devon serve as the Area Board of Zoning Appeals county resident appointment from the Plan Commission, he would like to be relieved of his duty. So just because we do have some new folks, Jean is still relatively new. The area can I say you're still relatively new? The area plan has 2 appointments to the BZA. One is the town resident and town appointment, and the other is municipal appointment. And that person is DJ Tavernier because he represents the town of Osceola. And then there's an appointment that is a county resident to the Area Board of Zoning Appeals. Dr. Lauk has agreed to serve in that role for us. If you recall, before Adam helped us get through the last several months, it was Bob Hawley who passed, who was our longtime area plan and Area Board of Zoning Appeals member, area plan for 25 years, and Board of Zoning Appeals county resident for 19 years. So I hope you're ready for 19 years. So unless you've changed your mind, Adam, we'd be looking for.
I'll still be the alternate. I have no problem being the alternate.
So Adam, if you're unable to attend, Adam could
Okay.
sit in still for BZA.
So do we have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion that Dr. Lauk be appointed.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to appoint Dr. Locke to the ABZA.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Mr. Krasinski?
Yes.
Dr. Thacker?
Yes.
Dr. Lauk?
Yes.
Mr. Devon?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Mr. Welcome aboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our
happy
BCA
to
meetings can be quite marathon. They can be a marathon.
I'm used to it. It is fine with me. It will not be a shock.
Just gotta control your voice. They like to talk. Abby? Yep.
I didn't have an executive director's report in writing in the packet, and I apologize for that. I was on vacation when the packet went out. Really? Oh, they said that they almost wrote it for me. That would have been fun to see what you all come up with. The way they write the employee newsletter is also entertaining. I'll just give you an update on our petitions that hit the county council agenda, or that were approved on 7/9. So IUC non-conforming use text amendment, the rezoning on Fillmore Road from commercial to residential, and the rezoning for insignia for the proposed health studio, gym. They were all approved by the county council, as was the text amendment that was put forward by the area plan for solar energy systems. If you haven't already seen in the news, the county council also initiated a text amendment for additional regulations for large-scale solar systems. That will need to come back through the area plan at your meeting next month. It could not come back this month because we do have to advertise, and it didn't give us the required 10 days by state statute. So please anticipate that on the agenda for August. And that's all I have for now.
Okay. I'm assuming just what, more stringent requirements from what we talked about then? Is that what they're?
There's an increased setback from a residence from 250 to 500 feet from a residence to a solar panel. There are additional provisions for drainage requirements and an additional landscaping requirement, not just for type 2 buffer yard adjacent to a residential subdivision of 10 lots or more. It's adjacent to any residential home or home.
Residential use or
Yeah.
residential home?
So in an ag district, if it were a single-family home, that requirement would be triggered.
And also added a setback for private land preserves.
Oh, yes,
nature
to a park.
preserves, parks, that kind of thing, 500 feet.
All right.
Okay.
So please look forward to August.
Okay, anything else? Otherwise, we have a motion to adjourn.
Chair, it's not going to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion, second to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Thank you, everybody.
Good job.
You know, we need to not have DJ and everybody else more often. We went pretty quick.